Is working out for 1 hour a day too much or not enough? For decades, people have repeated that 1 hour a day is the magic number, the key to staying fit, losing weight, and living longer. But Peter Attia, one of the most respected longevity doctors in the United States, says the truth is much more nuanced. Because when it comes to exercise and aging, the question isn't just how long you train, it's how smart you train. Let's start with a simple observation. Have you ever seen someone who trains every single day, spends hours at the gym, but somehow still looks tired, sore, or even unhealthy? And then there's someone else who trains less but seems full of energy, moves with strength and balance, and recovers effortlessly. The difference between those two people isn't discipline, it's understanding. Peter Attia calls it the difference between exercising and training with intent. Exercising means moving for the sake of movement. Training means moving with purpose, with a clear goal, the right intensity, and, most importantly, the right amount of recovery. Here's the problem. Many people over 40, 50, or 60 hear 1 hour a day and push themselves to exhaustion, thinking more effort equals more results. But your body doesn't see it that way. For muscle, heart, and nervous system, there's an optimal dose. Too little and you lose progress. Too much and you break down. Imagine your body like a finely tuned engine. You can't just press the gas pedal all the time and expect it to last. You need rhythm, acceleration, rest, and maintenance. And that's exactly what Peter Attia wants people to understand. The goal isn't to exercise more, but to train smarter. In today's video, we'll break down what happens when you go beyond that 1 hour mark, when it helps, when it hurts, and how to find the balance that maximizes strength, endurance, and longevity without burning yourself out. By the end, you'll know exactly what Attia means when he says that longevity isn't just about doing more. It's about doing the right things at the right time for the right reasons. So, before you hit play on your next workout timer, let's find out. Is 1 hour a day really too much? Or is it just the beginning of... Let's go back to where this idea even came from, the 1 hour rule. Somewhere along the way, we started believing that if 30 minutes of exercise is good, then 60 must be better. And if an hour is great, maybe 2 would make us invincible. But Peter Attia reminds us that biology doesn't work like that. Exercise follows the same curve as medication. There's a dose that helps, a dose that does nothing, and a dose that becomes harmful. The goal, Attia says, is not to chase exhaustion, but adaptation. Your body doesn't grow stronger when you push it to the limit. It grows stronger when you give it the right signal and enough time to respond. Think about it like watering a plant. A little water makes it grow, but too much drowns it. The same goes for exercise. The right dose builds resilience. Too much creates stress, fatigue, and burnout. Now let's look at what the science says. Studies on longevity show that moderate, consistent exercise provides the biggest benefit for lifespan and health span. People who move daily but within a sustainable range lower their risk for heart disease, diabetes, and cognitive decline. But when training becomes extreme, long hours, minimal rest, chronic fatigue, the benefits plateau and sometimes even reverse. And this is where Attia's approach stands out. He trains for what he calls the centenarian decathlon, not to compete in 10 events, but to stay capable of 10 meaningful movements at age 100. His focus isn't on how many hours he trains, but on whether that training supports the life he wants to live decades from now. So when people ask him, is 1 hour too much? His answer is, it depends. It depends on your recovery, your sleep, your stress levels, and your goals. For a healthy, active adult, 1 hour a day might be perfect, but only if that hour is structured intelligently. It's not about killing yourself with intensity, it's about balancing effort and recovery. Picture 2 people. The first spends an hour every day doing random, high-intensity workouts. They sweat, they grind, they push, but they never recover fully. After a few weeks, they feel sore, drained, and start skipping sessions. The second person spends the same hour following a balanced routine, 30 minutes of Zone 2 cardio. So what really happens inside your body when you push too hard? Peter Attia often explains that exercise is not just movement. It's a form of controlled stress. Every workout sends a signal to your muscles, your heart, and your nervous system. Adapt, get stronger, become more efficient. But that signal only turns into progress if it's followed by recovery. Without recovery, stress stops being helpful and becomes destructive. Think of your training like a credit card. Every session is a purchase. You spend energy, you spend recovery capacity, and you spend your body's resources. But if you never pay that debt back with rest, nutrition, and sleep, eventually the bill comes due. Fatigue, injury, hormonal imbalance, and even loss of motivation are all signs that the system is overloaded. Let's look at what's actually happening physiologically. When you exercise, your body releases cortisol, a stress hormone. In the right amount, cortisol helps your body break down and rebuild tissue. But when it stays elevated for too long, it blocks recovery, interferes with sleep, and can even reduce muscle growth. Your nervous system stays in a state of high alert, and your body begins to interpret training not as growth, but as threat. Attia says this is one of the biggest mistakes people make when chasing longevity. They confuse doing more with doing better. He often uses the term minimum effective dose, the smallest amount of training required to create a positive adaptation. In other words, just enough to make your body stronger without tipping into fatigue. Imagine two lines on a graph. One represents training intensity, the other recovery. When they overlap, you grow. When intensity stays high and recovery stays low, those lines diverge and performance drops. Over time, that drop doesn't just affect your workouts, it affects your mood, your energy, even your immune system. Here's a practical way to think about it. After a good workout, you should feel slightly tired, not completely drained. The next day, you should be able to move, maybe a little sore, but still capable. If you wake up exhausted, sore for days, or mentally foggy, that's your body telling you the dose was too high. And this doesn't just happen to athletes. Many older adults fall. Let me share a simple example. Imagine a 62-year-old named Mark. He starts working out again after years of being inactive. In his first week, he trains 6 days straight, lifting weights, doing cardio, even running on the weekends. By the second week, his knees ache, he's sleeping poorly, and his energy crashes. Now compare that to Maria, also 62. She starts with 3 45-minute sessions a week, resistance training, walking, and stretching. She feels energized, her sleep improves, and her strength steadily increases. After 2 months, Maria has made more progress than Mark, even though she's technically training less. That's the physiology of recovery at work. The body adapts during rest, not during the workout itself. Exercise breaks down muscle fibers. Rest rebuilds them stronger. The training stimulus opens the door. Recovery walks through it. Attia often compares training to a symphony. Exercise is the music, but recovery is the silence that gives the notes meaning. Without that silence, everything becomes noise. So how do you find the right balance? Start by listening to your body. Track your energy levels, your sleep quality, your motivation. If you're constantly tired, your performance is dropping, or you're losing enthusiasm, it's time to adjust. Next, alternate hard and easy days. You don't need to crush every session. Attia himself trains intensely only a few days a week and fills the rest with Zone 2 cardio and active recovery. That balance keeps his performance high and his stress low. And finally, prioritize sleep and nutrition as much as the workout itself. Protein for repair, hydration for circulation, and 7 to 8 hours of sleep. These aren't extras, they're part of the training plan. Remember, your body doesn't reward effort, It rewards adaptation. Pushing harder isn't the goal. Progressing smarter is. And that's what separates longevity training from fitness fads. One is built on intensity. The other is built on intention. In the next section, we'll break down Attia's personal framework, the 4 training pillars that allow him and his patients to stay fit, functional, and injury-free for life. Now that we've seen what happens when you push too hard, let's talk about the kind of training that actually works. The kind that Peter Attia has refined over decades of study and practice. Attia's entire philosophy of exercise comes down to 4 essential pillars: strength, stability, aerobic capacity, and anaerobic performance. These are not random ideas. They represent the 4 qualities that determine how well you'll move, how long you'll live, and how independent you'll stay as you age. Let's go through them one by one. The first pillar is strength. Attia calls muscle the organ of longevity. Strong muscles protect your bones, improve your metabolism, and act as a reserve tank during illness or stress. You don't need to lift heavy weights like a bodybuilder, but you do need resistance, whether it's your own body weight, bands, or dumbbells. Even simple movements like squats, push-ups against a wall, or carrying groceries with intention can preserve muscle and function. Imagine this: one person in their 70s who can easily stand from a chair without help, and another who needs assistance. The difference isn't luck, it's strength. Every rep, every small effort you make today builds the independence you'll rely on tomorrow. The second pillar is stability. Strength without balance is like having a powerful engine in a car with bad tires. Stability means being able to move safely and efficiently, avoiding falls and joint strain. Attia often talks about training stability through mobility work, movements that strengthen small muscles around your hips, knees, and core. Think of it as the glue that keeps everything together. Without stability, strength becomes dangerous. The third pillar is aerobic capacity, what Attia calls Zone 2 training. This is low-intensity, steady-state cardio, walking, cycling, swimming, where you can still hold a conversation. It's not glamorous, but it's one of the most powerful longevity tools we have. Why? Because Zone 2 improves mitochondrial function, the energy factories in your cells. The more efficient your mitochondria, the better your body burns fat, regulates energy, and resists fatigue. Attia himself spends hours each week in Zone 2 because he knows it strengthens not just his heart, but every system in his body. He often says, "You can't outlift poor cardiovascular fitness." In other words, even if you're strong, without endurance, your body ages faster. Finally, there's the fourth pillar, anaerobic performance. This is your high-intensity work, the sprints, the quick bursts, the moments where your heart rate spikes. It's what allows you to climb stairs quickly, run to catch a bus, or respond to sudden challenges in daily life. But here's the catch: you only need small doses of it. Attia recommends just a few short intervals a week, enough to challenge your system, not enough to exhaust it. Remember the idea of minimum effective dose? This is where it truly applies. So, when you put all four pillars together, you get a framework built not for aesthetics, but for longevity. Strength gives you power. Stability gives you control. Aerobic capacity gives you endurance. Anaerobic bursts keep you adaptable. Let's visualize this for a moment. Imagine two 65-year-olds. One spends every workout doing only cardio. The other follows Attia's four-pillar approach: strength twice a week, stability every morning, Zone 2 cardio on most days, and short bursts of intensity once or twice a week. After 6 months, the difference is striking: better posture, higher energy, and a lower risk of injury. The point is simple: balance wins. Training across all four systems builds a body that's ready for anything, not just today, but for decades to come. And that's why, When Peter Attia says that 1 hour of training a day can be perfect, he means 1 hour of balance. Not random effort, not punishment, but intelligent design. In the next section, we'll explore the hidden half of that design, recovery. Because no matter how well you train, it's what you do outside the gym that determines how strong you truly become. If training is the visible side of the coin, recovery is the invisible one. And Peter Attia believes it's the side that most people ignore. He often reminds his patients that exercise doesn't make you stronger, recovery does. Training is the stress. Recovery is the adaptation. Without recovery, you're simply digging a deeper hole, one workout at a time. So what exactly does recovery mean? It's not just resting or skipping the gym. Recovery is an active biological process. It's your body repairing muscle fibers, replenishing glycogen, balancing hormones, and calming the nervous system. Attia compares it to rebuilding after an earthquake. The training shakes everything up, and recovery is when you reconstruct stronger foundations. If you don't give your body enough time to rebuild, the next earthquake just causes more cracks. Let's look at the key recovery pillars Attia focuses on: sleep, nutrition, and stress management. First, sleep. During deep sleep, your body releases growth hormone, repairs damaged tissues, and restores your nervous system. If you train hard but sleep poorly, your body never completes that repair cycle. Attia often says that if he could prescribe only one performance enhancer, it would be sleep, because it's free, powerful, and non-negotiable. Second, nutrition. The fuel you eat determines how well your body rebuilds. You need enough protein, around 1.6 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, to support muscle repair. But it's not just about protein. You need carbohydrates to refill your energy stores and healthy fats to support hormone balance. Many people make the mistake of training hard and eating light, thinking they'll lose fat faster. But what actually happens is they under-recover. Their body runs out of materials to rebuild, and progress slows down. Third, stress management. Your body doesn't differentiate between physical and emotional stress. If you're anxious, underslept, or overworked, your recovery system is already overloaded before you even start training. That's why Attia emphasizes mindfulness, breath work, and active rest days, walking, stretching, or spending quiet time outdoors. Here's a real-world scenario. Two people train with the same intensity. One sleeps 5 hours, skips breakfast, and goes straight from work stress to gym stress. The other sleeps 7.5 hours, hydrates properly, eats balanced meals, and takes one full recovery day per week. After a month, their results are completely different. Same workouts, different recovery. Attia often says, you can't out-train poor recovery. You can push your body for a while, but sooner or later it pushes back with fatigue, injuries, or burnout. So how do you know if you're recovering well? Pay attention to your signals. Are you sleeping deeply? Do you wake up with energy? Do you feel motivated to move again? Those are green lights. If you wake up exhausted, irritable, or your performance drops, that's your body asking for more time to heal. Remember, recovery is not laziness, it's strategy. It's the second half of the equation. You don't grow in the gym. You grow between workouts. And that's why, when Peter Attia structures his own training, he builds recovery into the plan, not as an afterthought, but as a requirement. In the next section, we'll look at how to personalize your own training volume, how to know exactly when 1 hour a day is enough and when it might be too much. So, is 1 hour a day too much? Peter Attia would say, it depends, because what's too much for one person might be exactly right for another. The real answer depends on 3 variables: your recovery, your stress load, and your goals. Let's start with recovery. If you sleep well, eat enough, and manage stress effectively, your body can handle more training. But if you're constantly tired, underslept, or skipping meals, even 30 minutes might be too much. Attia often reminds his patients that training doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in the context of your entire life. Your workouts, your job, your relationships, your sleep, they all draw from the same recovery bank account. And if you keep spending without depositing, that account goes into debt. Now, let's look at stress. Your nervous system doesn't separate physical stress from emotional stress. So if you're carrying anxiety, lack of sleep, or work tension into your workouts, your system is already overloaded before you even start. That's when training for an hour a day can backfire. Not because exercise is bad, but because your body isn't prepared to handle more strain. The third factor is goals. What are you training for? If your goal is longevity, to stay strong, mobile, and independent after 60, then you don't need to train like an athlete. You need sustainability. That might mean 45 to 60 minutes of balanced movement most days, with variety and recovery built in. But if your goal is performance, running marathons, lifting heavy, or competing, you can train longer as long as recovery matches effort. Attia calls this the load-recovery equation. You can increase your training load as long as recovery increases in parallel. The problem comes when training load grows and recovery stays the same. That's when injuries, plateaus, and burnout appear.
Let me give you a simple framework inspired by Attia's approach.
30 to 45 minutes. Ideal for beginners or people returning after a break. Focus on movement quality, not volume. 45 to 60 minutes. The sweet spot for most healthy adults. Enough to train all 4 pillars: strength, stability, aerobic, and anaerobic, without exceeding recovery capacity. 60+ minutes. Beneficial only if recovery, nutrition, and sleep are optimized. Otherwise, you're trading short-term gains for long-term fatigue. Remember, your goal isn't to test your limits every day, it's to expand them slowly over time. Think of your training like tuning a guitar. Too loose and there's no sound. Too tight and the string snaps. The art is in the tension. Not too much, not too little, perfectly tuned to your body. Attia often says, train today so you can train tomorrow. It's a simple but profound rule. The best training session is the one that lets you show up again the next day, stronger, not broken. So the next time you ask yourself, is 1 hour a day too much? Don't just look at the clock. Look at your recovery, your energy, your purpose. Because it's not the number of minutes that matters. It's how those minutes fit into the bigger picture of your life. In the next section, we'll explore something most people overlook entirely: the emotional and psychological side of training. Because fitness isn't only about muscles, it's about mindset.
So far, we've talked about physiology, recovery, and training structure.
But there's another side to exercise, one that's harder to measure, but just as important: the emotional and psychological side. Peter Attia often says that most people approach exercise from the wrong mindset. They see it as a punishment for eating too much, or as a race to prove something to themselves or to others. But that approach never lasts, because it's built on guilt, not purpose. Attia encourages a shift in perspective. Don't train to burn calories, train to build capacity. You're not exercising to erase yesterday's mistakes. You're exercising to prepare for tomorrow's possibilities. Think about how powerful that is. When you stop seeing workouts as debt payment and start seeing them as an investment in your future, everything changes. You stop asking, do I have to work out today? And start asking, what kind of life am I building for myself? This mindset shift creates freedom. Because now, exercise is no longer a burden. It's a gift you give yourself. Every movement, every rep, every step becomes a vote for the person you want to be at 70, 80, or 90. Attia calls this the longevity mindset, training not for next summer, but for the next 30 years. He often tells his patients to picture their future selves, walking upstairs without pain, playing with grandkids, traveling without exhaustion. Those moments aren't built by chance. They're built by the decisions you make today. And there's something even deeper here. Exercise doesn't just build muscle. It builds confidence. It gives you a sense of control in a world that often feels unpredictable. When you move your body, you remind yourself that you still have power, agency, and resilience. Let's imagine two people in their 60s. One views exercise as a chore, something they have to do. The other sees it as a daily opportunity, something they get to do. Both perform the same workout, but the emotional outcome is completely different. The first ends the session drained. The second ends empowered. That's the difference Attia wants everyone to feel, the shift from obligation to ownership. Because ultimately, physical longevity without emotional vitality is incomplete. So, as you train, remember this. It's not.
So, is 1 hour of exercise a day too much? Peter Attia's answer is simple. It depends on how you use that hour. Because the goal isn't to fill 60 minutes. The goal is to build a body and mind that can carry you through life with strength, clarity, and independence. Think about everything we've covered. We learned that more isn't always better, that progress comes from balance, not excess. We explored how your body adapts to stress, how recovery turns effort into growth, and how Attia's 4 pillars, strength, stability, aerobic, and anaerobic, create the foundation for true longevity. We talked about rest, nutrition, and mindset, and how training smarter always beats training harder. But here's the real takeaway. Longevity isn't a single decision. It's a daily equation. Effort plus recovery plus purpose equals growth. The effort is your training, the work you put in. The recovery is your sleep, your nutrition, your calm. And the purpose is your reason, why you keep showing up even when it's hard. When those 3 elements align, you don't just live longer, you live better. You move with confidence, you think with clarity, and you wake up with energy that reflects all the small, consistent investments you've made in yourself. Attia often says, train for the last decade of your life, because the choices you make today decide how strong, capable, and independent you'll be in your 70s, 80s, and beyond. So maybe 1 hour a day is too much, if it's unfocused, unbalanced, and unsustainable. But 1 hour spent wisely, built on strength, recovery, and intention, might be the best investment you'll ever make. As you finish this video, I want you to ask yourself one simple question. Am I training just to get through today, or to prepare for the decades ahead? Because in the end, longevity isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. And every day you move, rest, and recover with purpose, you're proving that the strongest version of yourself is still in progress. So go ahead, take that hour, make it count, and train for the life you want to live.